Altars. The word altar has a widespread meaning from the elaborate church, synagogue, temple, or shrine that contain gilded items of religious importance, to altars of sacrifice to Yahweh and or the old gods. A home altar is a sacred space that we can go to reconnect with our deeper parts of ourselves and our chosen deities, or maybe even our past loved ones. The creation of a personal altar is a sacred act unto itself, where we connect back to our source. Yet if we ask the majority of people if they have an altar, they would tell you no. However, the truth is most of us actually do have many altars in our home and never realize them at all. An altar can simply be a place where you reflect on the things you truly value, the deeper, lasting, more eternal aspects of life. The objects on an altar are often symbols of larger ideas. Like photographs are not just about the people themselves, but also about your feelings towards family, community, love, and friendship. Objects, a rock or a feather, even things you might not expect, like a poem, an old toy, a piece of clothing, can be as a transparent doorway to deeper realms. The human urge to create sacred space is universal. Photos arranged on a mantel or a tabletop, personal objects filled with memories and symbolic meaning, are ways for us to attempt to strengthen the connections between loved ones, nature, community, and restore our balance and connection with the divine. The turning of the seasons brings tablescaping tops of the furniture with the decorations of the current Sabbats or religious holidays connected with the season we are in. These are altars to the turning of the wheel and throwbacks to the days gone by when they officially called them altars, to modern times where we tend to feel it is just artistic expression to the holiday. Through time we have forgotten the larger idea behind the traditions that we hold. This is why many people still pull out certain decorations and pass down items with each new holiday season. It is our human connection with a larger ideal.
While we're talking about altar space, sacred space, and our devotional space, I wanted to show you two different altars. One more traditional and one more, and it's ancestral in origin, but it's more eclectic, and shows you the different styles that you can perform to create sacred space. The altar you're looking at right now is my main working altar space. I do the majority of my personal work here. I'm going to attempt to while keeping the camera steady. I have through the center is the representation of spirit. It is my source candle from which all things emanate from. So in the source candle, it's the first candle that I light on my altar, but it is also representative of the spirit always being present. I have to the right side my God side, and in there I have many different representations. I have the candle, and in the candle, that's the second candle that I light to bring in the masculine energy, the spark of life. The masculine encompasses the elements of air and also fire. So here I have my wand, my athame. I have the flame, the candle. I have a set of antlers because my God representation is the stag. So I also have an image of a stag. Now, I also have some non-traditional things. I broke open a geode, and this part of the geode that I got had a more phallic symbol in it, and I have the other half on the goddess side for the feminine half. So when the two go back together, it is like the Holy Union. I was given this by a little boy, and it is a more phallic symbol of a pine cone, so I keep it here as well. This is supposed to be the devil, but I more envision him as Pan. So I have the god Pan here. I also have some Buddha images off to the side, and this is also where I keep my main incense that I'm going to use on the censer, which is more representative of air because it goes up in smoke, but it's also burned on fire. So it encompasses two elements there as well. Then the seashell is phallic in nature, feminine on the other side, and also the element of water, but also the element of earth. So this seashell represents more than just one aspect on the altar. It brings to mind many different aspects that I need to be focused on while I'm doing work on my altar. I do have my salt, and I do have my chalice. These are going to be representative of water and earth. And then I also have my holy oil that is representative and contained in a vessel. It's more water imagery. I have my oil burner that I burn, which has fire. It has the water, and it is also the element of air because it puts a perfume into the air. But it is also a water symbol in and of itself because it is a vessel to hold. So I have it representing many, many aspects there. I have my censer, my burner here, and again, this is feminine in nature. However, it also encompasses fire and air. So it tends to be that each element is within other elements as well, and it reminds me of the connection. On my goddess side, I have, of course, her candle, an image of the goddess, but I also have a hen. Now, this came from an ancestor, so it came from a great-grandmother, and the hen represents to me the feminine nature of giving birth. But it also sometimes holds magic for me as I am doing some workings. I have a small pentacle at the base of the goddess's feet. I have a piece of goddess soap that has a goddess image on it that was given to me by a dear friend. And the other part of the geode is right here as well. And then there's a little piece of coral representing water. I have my mugwort water here for divining. I have my blue moon water that I still have from the day that my grandson was born. I have my pentacle, another small wand as well, and then I have several different other representations. I have some little stags, jeweled stags here on the side. I have a jaguar head, which represents one of my main goddesses. I have a feather. Just different various images. I have an owl for another goddess that I work with all the time. So the representations are all there. I have two goddess images, two god images, and then the shelves above are also filled all the way up with god, goddess images as well. and also contain more of my working tools all around the altar so that I can do what I need to do. This is a more traditional altar setup. However, it is still unique to me. And that's just the whole thing, is that tradition becomes your tradition, not anybody else's tradition. There's not a whole lot of right and wrong in altar making. It's really about what opens up your mind to the thought process that you need as you sit down to perform work. So all around I see these images. They automatically, like flashcards, flash me back to certain elements that I need to be working with. I'm going to shut this down and set up the next altar. Actually, I'm going to deconstruct the next altar so that you can see me put together a small ancestor altar. I thought it would be appropriate, since this is also the month of Samhain, and ancestor altars are very big at this time of year to remember our past loved ones. So I will be right back. I'm back. This is going to be the reconstruction of my ancestor altar that I put together, also for my alternative uses for things that signify the elements on an altar. I started with a picture of two of my ancestors, and this happens to be a representation of the two sides of my mother's family. So this is the piece that I am working with as the main centerpiece of the actual altar itself. Now that represents spirit. Now I have an old Bacardi bottle that I found under a crocheted poodle of a great-grandmother that represents my father's side of the family. So it's going to represent spirit in two different ways. It represents spirit because it is the spirit of my great-grandmother, whose hands worked to have a covering on that bottle for probably 60 years before I removed the white poodle that was around it, because it was very yellow and faded, and when I went to clean it, I've discovered this bottle underneath it. It's an antique Bacardi bottle, and I use it also because rum is also considered spirits. So it has got a double meaning for me there. Now, I used this piece right here, which is another piece of another great-grandmother, back again on my mother's side now, and in it I placed a yellow rose. The yellow rose was representing the origins of Texas to me. So that is an earth element, but also a water element, because it is a vessel that can hold water. So it is also the spirit of my grandmother, so it's feminine energy as well. I put, let's see, two small skulls, also representing the spirit of my ancestors. And I also put a cup of skulls, also representing spirit, but also again there's water and earth represented there as well. I placed two peacock feathers, because the peacock feather has always been on my altars, and so that also represents air again. I had a small offering of fire water That represents fire and water together, but is also an offering to the spirits as well, to my ancestors. I also placed willow sticks. Willow sticks for several reasons. Willow represents the goddess. Willow represents water. Willow also is a divination tool. So for talking to the spirits, I thought it was a very positive imagery there. This is a piece of rosemary that I got off of my daughter's rosemary bush in her home, and therefore it represents memory, remembering my ancestors, remembering my past, but also remembering my future bloodlines as well, my children, my grandchildren. So rosemary is the element of fire, but it is also the element of memory, which is the element of air. I found this piece of amber on my dad's place. It was found where Native Americans used the hill as a lookout and made their tools and stuff. This represents my ancestors all the way back. So I placed it as an element for earth and an ancestry link. It's also been a protection piece of mine for a long, long time. I have this 1800s Bible. It is representing thought, spirituality, and it goes on as also a personal item owned by a previous ancestor that I never met. I also have a small penknife that belonged to the grandfather that's in this picture. So that also is like an athame, which is air, but again, metal can also be a fire element as well. So it's on there for both. I also put a hunk of desert rose. And desert rose is for peace and harmony, particularly in the home. It will, so it represents to me on this altar peace and tranquility in my bloodlines and my family. I also have a piece of bloodstone for the ties that bind. And again, bloodstone is a fire element, but also an earth element, and something that is representative of the blood ties that I have. I also placed a compass that represents all the directions except for spirit, so that I never lose my way or lose sight of where I'm going. I put a pair of old eyeglasses that also belonged to one of my relatives. So as we are building there, you could continue to put anything that you wanted on these kind of altars. These are a compilation of things owned by relatives of the past. They are also things that remind you of your ancestral ties. So it doesn't have to be always something of somebody else's, or it has a big variety of ways it ties me back into my bloodlines and for the remembrances of my past loved ones. Now this is just a small table that I put this on an actual bed tray, and the covering, I didn't talk about it, but I put red velvet underneath the black lace to represent the blood, the old blood, basically, the past bloodlines. So I have multi-layers of representation so that when I look at that, I can remember a whole gambit of things just by the little cluttered images all around on the table. Now, it also is a talking point. So if somebody comes into my home and starts asking me about it, then I can start talking and remembering about my ancestors. This is a great way. I do it frequently with my grandsons, and I start telling them stories so that they can remember people that they have never met. This particular grandfather that is featured here has a wonderful story that I told my grandson, and still to this day, on his first Samhain that he was old enough to remember, I told him the story of my grandfather's pet squirrel, Charlie Brown. So still to this day, 6-7 years later, my grandson still calls squirrels Charlie Browns, and he collects squirrels of his own volition. He just walks into any place that he sees a small squirrel, he wants his mother to buy it, and he has a collection of them now. He also now feeds the squirrels on a regular basis as well too. So he's often wants his mother to buy nuts and stuff so he can put them in the yard to feed all the Charlie Browns out there. So these are how we pass traditions on. Altars are not just our working altars. They're also ways to connect back to our past, and I just wanted to touch on that because this was a great month to do so, the month of Samhain. Y'all have a very blessed week, and maybe we will see you on Friday's wrap up. Thank you. Good day.